All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of, I guess this is a Palantir Weekly episode. We'll have another episode tomorrow night, but I'm here with Adam, also known as GoCarp. His Twitter is in the description. Adam has been on the channel about 4 or 5 times in the past 12 months, and he is someone who has heavily followed Palantir's government side of the business, the patent side of the business, basically all the nitty-gritty stuff that people don't want to research. He does that research, and he finds a lot of stuff before a lot of stuff is announced. So this week, we had some pretty big deals drop. We had an extension of some of those deals drop this morning. And Adam's going to walk us through why we got these deals, what's the implications of these deals, how much real money is out there, and then overall what's going on in the government business and how much money is actually out there. Adam, how you doing?
Good, good. It's nice seeing you virtually. Not the same as in person, but
Yeah.
still
Adam and
good.
I did get to meet in New York. We shared a coffee together, and that was fun. So Palantir is global, and we're all here ready to analyze this damn company.
They are. I mean, I don't know how much it's going to be 10, 20, 30 years down the line, obviously. But, Maven, and we'll get into the nitty gritty, but just off of the top of my head doing math, which I'm not very good at with even a calculator, if everything they got hits Q2 on the books, and I'm assuming 90% of what the figure I'm going to say is legitimately going to hit, it's going to be either $205 million or $231 million just off of this Maven package for just this one quarter.
Right.
Now, you're not going to get that every quarter. And the reason for that is you're getting a $480 million deal that goes over 5 years, obviously. And this is coming from the defense.gov, website that does the DoD contracts that are over $7.5 million. So this publishes basically every night after 5 p.m. Some days it's a little bit later. It's usually on the dot. This one was pretty close to 5 p.m. Like 5:08 it was updated. It's pretty nice to see that for once. But that didn't really give a lot of information.
So then we got this today from Palantir themselves.
Correct.
So what is this? 480 million over 5 years. Palantir saying we got 153 million up front.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, and why is this happening, I guess?
So the way how they broke it out was it's a 5-year deal, obviously, and I'm pretending like you can see my hand with my fucking badass JAD C2 background. So they broke it out, and you could see it right there. I'm not looking at it. I have way too many tabs open, and I'm like freaking out at it. Is that the first task order is this $153 million of this $480 million. So this $153 million, this is hitting the books in my, if I'm reading this stuff correctly, June 1st.
So you don't think the 153 would be split up over this year per se? So
no.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I believe it's I could be completely wrong, and we'll know that when we actually get the numbers. So, I mean, don't hold me to it. I'm admitting I could be wrong, but it says the work starts on June 1. So if that first task order starts on June 1, I'm assuming they're getting they get the contract and the money, and they do it, and they'll get the other part of the $480 million if they live up to it and they want to extend it and all this other nonsense. But where is the other quote unquote contract coming from? And that was really all the confusion today. And in my opinion, Palantir waited to make their PR because if you remember yesterday, the company that actually made the PR was the one that was part of the deal, like Aeon or Aeon, whatever it was. They actually made the PR. And it was more structured towards their company, obviously, but it's more bigger deal for Palantir, of course. So, Palantir waits to today because they also got, and an OTA or an OT. I forgot what it is. It's another $33 million, and the $33 million is part of the integration of
Adam, you might want to turn the Discord off. You got too many pilly people messaging you and just sound, or just turn on mute. Is interrupting you way too much.
How the fuck do I do that?
Yeah, I've always got annoyed with Discord. You either you log out just from the bottom one. That's the easiest way.
I'll figure it out on my phone.
Or just tell people to stop messaging you right now.
I don't think that's possible.
Okay, so let's start here. For what is Project Maven? What is this contract in the first place? Like, why did we get 480 million from the army for this?
Okay, so I think I have it on mute now. So that's actually a better place to potentially start. Is what is the Maven Smart System? And I did a whole post on this, and this is what the National Geospatial Agency, the NGA, they are calling it. And Project Maven, since its inception, has moved around, I believe, at least once, because it was under a different agency for a few years, and then it went under the NGA. And the NGA is now overseeing it. And we'll get to it, but part of the information that came out, I forgot the woman's name. She works for Palantir.
Wendy?
No, it's not Wendy. Shannon Clark.
Okay, yes.
So, she says, and, this is what it says in the article, and I'll get back to why I'm bringing this up, is today, a prototype version of Maven Smart System is accessible to an elite group of U.S. headquarters around the world, from the Joint Staff in the Pentagon to operational combatant commands. Those include Central Command in the Middle East, European Command, Indo-Pacific Command, NORAD, Northern Command in the U.S. and Canada, and the Worldwide Transportation. And then Shannon Clark, this is her words. When we kicked off this project, the prototype began in 2021. So you're talking about something that's really been in the works at that point for 4 years at that point, because Maven started in 2017. We fielded it to a small set of users at each of those combatant commands and the Joint Staff, said Shannon Clark, head of defense growth at Palantir. Now this is an offering an enterprise capability with essentially no limit at those combatant commands. But they ask her at one point, do you think there's going to be access to other combatant commands? Because there's 11 combatant commands. And this is why I encourage everyone to look at the DoD organizational chart that I did post. It is under the 11 combatant commands. There's, CENTCOM, there's the 5 commands that they just, she rattled off. But then she says SpaceCom and StratCom, and SpaceCom is obviously space, but StratCom is all about, United States strategics and logistics, whatever it might be. So that's all low Earth orbit satellite kind of target, all from the Earth. Like it's really coming, and she would not have named those commands unless they were confident. So it's a really big deal on what she said specifically, because there's 11 commands plus the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I don't know if you can pull it up. I have it up on my end, but if you look up the DoD key leadership organizational chart, you can see there are 11, and this contract is for. I would pull it up, because the one that I had originally is old and now it's updated. I think there was originally 9 combatant commands and now there's 11.
This picture might be wrong, but that might be the wrong picture. The point is there's a lot of Oh, I'm not even sharing it. The point is there is a lot of divisions to JADC 2, which
So
is being
no,
incorporated.
that's not what we're looking for. If I can just like upload a picture somehow, or can I
You,
send it to you?
yeah, just send me the link on Twitter, or you can share your screen too, but you can just send it on Twitter. That's easier.
Hold up, people.
Yeah, and I think with this we'll talk about JADC 2 and what it means.
So the whole JADC2, and they kind of said it in one of these articles, and they embraced it. Is I just sent you the picture. Is they embraced it, and they're saying it's our vision. Now I'm sure it's part of the armies and whatnot. I've been the one pushing it. It's Aki's vision, to be honest, specifically him, but all a Palantir, of course.
Aki is the president of Palantir USG, for those that don't know.
He actually used to be CTO, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, at the
Yep.
time, and they switched it with Sham, which has worked out obviously in both respects. So good. So yeah, if you look at this leadership chart, you can see there's the combatant commands down on the top right, and right above that is the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So you can see, they're working at the very, very highest level of the Department of Defense. So for people that have never seen this before, so the Joint Chiefs of Staff are reporting directly to the Secretary of Defense, more or less. So it's a huge fucking deal that they got this and they're able to say it outright. When the Israel and Hamas war has started, they kind of have been more open with their relationship with CENTCOM,
Right.
especially after the Iran attack. They fully embraced it. And during the AI Expo, they talked about the JADC2 software development kit. So they're not hiding it anymore. They're putting, the cat is out of the box in respect to JADC2, whether people understand the significance of it and how big it is. And it's not just a big deal to Palantir and Palantir investors and America. It's a big deal for the entire armed forces and the world and everyone involved in this, including the taxpayer. So everyone is indeed affected by this. So, it's a really big moment for them. I don't think they're going to have any problem delivering on what they're supposed to do.
So the 480 million today is part of JADC 2, is what you're saying. The Maven project.
It's when I first came on here and I used the word, it's all connected but disconnected.
Yeah.
That's what it all is. So if you're looking at that organizational chart, I would put it back up. The simplest way of describing the JADC2 vision is the Secretary of Defense. So the guy at the very, very top, or the woman, Kathleen Hicks in this case, who has said on record, JADC2 is viable and ready. So it is a ready product at this moment that the Secretary of Defense is willing to say that. That the Secretary of Defense and the soldier who's in the Navy, more or less, that if they're pulling up their computer right now at Thursday, May 30th, 10:30, and they can look at the same exact thing. Now, the person in the field might be restricted to multiple levels of information. That's to be expected. That's built within, the software. But the whole point is that the top dogs can see what is going on with their soldiers at the lowest level. And it's to see everything in one glass pane of single truth, one source of truth. All Palantir really does, and I know this is going to sound simple, but it's not, is they take all these different systems and they basically, like one of the generals said it, I forgot what it was, is they basically take all these systems and picture a giant garden, okay? And you need, 50 different garden hoses. But the garden hoses are all connected to one little, water tube at the end originally, and all the tubes are tied together. So you're getting a really slow drip. You can't really get a lot of water. The plants, blah blah blah. You're not able to grow your crop. What Palantir does basically is they untangle the hose for you, and that water is the data. So they untangle the hose, and now you're able to see all the data from all these different systems that are coming in to the system that they built.
Right.
And everyone has access to that system. Now, everyone has different access to the different levels of data. That is the key. That is JADC2. Project Maven is just a bullet point or a tool in the box of making the JADC2 vision a reality. So when an operator is using the Maven Smart system, they are in theory carrying out the JADC2 vision because they are looking at the same battlefield that their superior commander or their peer across the seas are looking at. That's the main thing. See, there's the OT with the 33 million.
Yeah,
See,
can we talk about that? What is this today? We got another contract.
So if you remember with Mission Manager, and they said this is how you get part of the 205 and or the 231 million. So you have the 153 that's coming, and then you have this $33 million. So the $33 million is exactly what it's saying. They are just going to be onboarding different vendors, the MOSA architecture, just allowing other companies that have a specific product or a specific software that can help in a certain element at a certain time in the mission. They will integrate it into Maven, and the operator will then use that software in relation to using Maven or whatever it will be, and they can build on top of it. And I want to get into the article with Shannon and one of the other articles, because the press release was really good. But the article, like the one that I mentioned, where they mentioned Spacecom and Stratcom, that's the one with really all the information. So and the funny part is it is a prototype. They are calling it a prototype. So Titan is a quote unquote prototype. So what's going to happen in 5 years. The prototype is going to become a program of record, and it might be another 5-year contract, but it's not going to be $153 million. It could be $553 million task order.
Right.
And it's going to be, and someone said it in the Discord, is maybe they found their pricing structure. I don't really know. I feel like they definitely have to understand their cost. That is 100% true. I don't think their cost really changes, whether it's defense project or if it's a commercial project. Like, you still have to have the same amount of compute and the same amount of power, blah, 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 blah. I think so. That's really not it. I think they have to work within the 4 lines of a budget and bureaucracy, but they're really, really showing their strength, and they're fucking flexing it. And they didn't release any PRs this month, and this was it. And I believe they knew this was coming. And this is how I'm going to tie in the $45 million. And here's actually the best part about this $45 million that went under the radar that's connected to this.
So hold on, where's what do you mean by 45 million? We didn't talk about that yet.
Right. So on April 30th, they officially got awarded a blanket purchase order for a 2-month program for Maven, and that was released on May 4th. So, and if you look at the documents, like the contracting officer started this on March 11th, like the paperwork and everything, and it was signed on April 30th, and they released it on May 4th. But I didn't know what it was. We didn't know what it was connected to or anything. So, but they're getting $19 million. And if that thing went into effect on April 30th, the month of May is already done. So $19 million is already hitting the books, and whatever the remainder of that would be. So if all this money is hitting on Q2, 153 plus 33 plus 45, you do the math. Maybe they don't get the full 45. Maybe they get 205, and that's if they have to split it up. I could be wrong.
I definitely don't think it's going to be all Q2. I just don't think strategically they would want to do that, but it's going to be for the next 3 quarters, which is going to increase the growth. It's
not up to them how the money is structured.
Really?
It's the government, dude. You can't tell once. They're going to be like, I'm going to fucking pay you when I'm going to pay you, and you're going to accept the terms or you're not. You deal with any government agency, there's always terms, and more or less it's their way or the highway. And when
Right.
you're
So
dealing,
basically, there's a couple scenarios. Either the government gives them 45 out of the 153, and that's all Palantir can recognize, or they give them the full 153, and Palantir can recognize all of it, or Palantir can choose to recognize it. Like, there's a lot of creative ways they're going to have to see
I'm
how it
sure
plays out.
their accountants are creative on the books if need be, but they're getting paid for it regardless. In my opinion, it's coming. See, I'm going to read this now because I think that's going to help. It is the fact that I don't think everyone has all the information. So right after I told you where Shannon says, her thing about getting this to the combatant commands, as of June 1, when the new contract's 153 million initial task order goes into effect. Done. It's over. 153. It goes into effect on June 1. Don't like it? Get out with the snowflakes and fucking melt away on my balls. It's over. 153. It says it right there.
And I thought today was exciting because it's like we knew the 480 yesterday was awesome. And then the 153 up front, 31% of the deal in the first year. It's kind of, how do you interpret that? Do you think the Army's just like, hey, we really need this right now, and that's why we're paying you?
No, I think the reality of the situation is, and look, I've never, in my professional career, I deal a lot of work with quote unquote government agencies, not to the Department of Defense's level. So money is always fickle and they are always on a budget. And it's always the last, at least for my stuff, you're not the priority till you're, this stuff is different. It's a priority. So, they, with the defense budget, what was going on with the fiscal year, they had a ton of problems of getting all the money passed through Congress of the fiscal year 24. So that held up a lot of the money. So I'm not surprised to see that it's summertime and the money's starting to flow in because A, they need to spend it, and B, the fiscal year for the United States government ends September 30th. So they are in, not to say that they're in a quote unquote spending spree. They're always in a spending spree with Uncle Sam. I say it all the time. We don't have a tax problem. We have a spending problem. Is they are now able to spend the defense budget appropriately and with all the allocated funds that had to get shifted around all the 1,000 times that they were bickering back and forth in Congress about shit. So they got the 153. Why they got the 153 and why is it coming on June 1 and not today? I don't know. That's like I said, it's the government. You don't tell them, no, I want my money now. They're going to tell you, no, you'll get it tomorrow. And Palantir is not the type of company to tell you, well, I'm not showing up for the work. They've been doing the work, but the 45 million that's part of this, they're getting potentially 19 million of it already because it was a 2-month thing and that went into effect April 30th, or if you want to say May 4th, because that's when they publicly released it, which is bullshit. It went into effect April 30th when the guy signed it. So call it May 1. It's the end of the month. They got 19 million there. So 45 minus 19, do the math. If they get that, which it says it in the thing, it's a 2-month performance program for this licenses, is then they get the remainder of that money as well. They would do the work. I could be wrong, but
No, dude, it seems like you dug up a lot of stuff and it's
so
starting to materialize now.
So the 153 plus the 33 is like a guarantee, in my opinion. June 1, that goes into effect. And the 33, like I said, it's really tied to them being the premier software systems integrator. And it's just like, this is the whole thing. And with Maven, that 33 million, that kind of just proves that they are going to be, and granted, Maven is their system, so they kind of have to be the integrator for it. And we can get into it about how they are the sole vendor for Maven. That's clear as day. That came out a few months ago or whatever.
And also, they got this 33 by the CDAO, AIO. If I'm not wrong, that's a new subsidiary of the DoD, Chief Digital and AI Office, correct? Or has that been around for a while?
So the CDAO, I think it was formed maybe 2020, 2021. It's relatively new, but this is the office that they poached Greg Little from. He was
right.
He was originally the head of this office, and he hopped on board with Palantir. So it's really not surprising to see all that coming to fruition. and coming to, bloom at this moment, anything related to the CDAO. There'll be a lot more, but, with Maven, and and this is what it says in the article. This is what it says about what they built. Palantir built Maven Smart System using what's called an open architecture, meaning it is designed to allow easy integration of software updates, upgrades, and new features, even from other vendors. Palantir is working hard with smaller firms and subcontractors to get them plug and play their innovations into Maven and get past the government's often agonizing authorization to operate process. In fact, this afternoon, Palantir announced a second Maven award, a $33 million other transaction authority contract to rapidly and securely onboard third-party vendor and government capabilities into the government-owned Palantir-operated data environment to meet priority combatant command digital needs. So the $33 million is about specifically the 5 combatant commands and their need of more Maven. So, it's all when you read they need to spend more on compute and they're going to be using it more. This is why their customers are using it more, and they're not using it more because they're just in R&D and they're trying to figure stuff out. They are in the midst of, delivering the next gen military software, I mean, I don't want to use the word weapon, but I mean, it is what they can do in certain respects. So, it's a really huge deal that they got this Maven contract, that the combatant commands are a part of it, that they're able to even say the combatant commands are part of it. I mean, when Shyam on his first breakfast, I think it might have been after the Iranian attack, he mentioned CENTCOM in there, and it's a big deal. So
the thing is, for Project Maven, there was no one else that could have gotten those 480 million, correct?
That's the whole point. So for those that don't know Maven, it was originally Google's. And basically, the woke people at Google had an absolute uproar of this project. And Google bowed down and said, okay, we're not going to be a part of it. And Palantir took over. So, they took over Project Maven, and that was really their big breakthrough into the government, in my opinion, was getting Maven. So that was their best thing. One man's garbage is another man's treasure. That was really huge for them, and I'm sure they're very, very grateful for that.
Okay, so let's move on now to Derek saying I gotta slap you around and wake you up a little bit. So I think what you're gonna talk about right now is gonna wake you up, because we talked about Maven, we talked about this new 33 million, but there's something else you wanted to talk about. We got 365 people here on a Thursday, 10:44 p.m. Thank you all for being here. Adam's Twitter is in the description. I'll put it in the chat right now. What is the new bombshell that you want to drop on all of us Palantir investors?
I want to see if the iPhone calculator could actually just get this figure first.
So apparently there's some more money that's coming our way that you believe is going to be a bit bigger than what we've seen over the past couple of days. And I'll just right now.
I don't believe I know.
Okay.
All right. Well, I can't get it while my phone is in that mode. So, I have to switch to my tabs. I had to give it its own browser because there's just way too many tabs. So first off, shout out Bobcat Gang for pulling this all together. This was a ridiculous find and a ton of research. So Palantir has an extremely, extremely, extremely deep relationship with the Army. And that's why everyone should just keep that DoD organizational chart out, because that's the whole point of Palantir. So when you look at the DoD organizational chart, you have, the combatant commands are using them, the Joint Chiefs of Staff are using them, the Space Force is using them, the Army is using them, the Marine Corps are using them, the Navy is using them, and now the Air Force is using them as well. So, but the Air Force and the Navy have always been they're, I don't want to say they're distant cousins compared to the Army. Just because, Titan is very much to the Army. The Army is very integrated. So, the Air Force in 2021, there is this, I'm just going to read this press release for a second, and everyone can just, take the figure at face value. The Armament Directorate's Agile Weapons Division has a new innovative contracting method called the Eglin-wide Agile Acquisition Contract. Eglin's armament enterprise took a monumental step forward towards advancing Agile Force multiplier weapon capabilities, said General Heath Collins, Air Force Program Executive Officer to Weapons and Armament Directorate Director. EWAC is a multiple award, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract focused on digital acquisitions, agile process, open system architecture, and enterprise analytics. The contract has a high ceiling of up to $46 billion and a 10-year period of performance. $46 billion.
When was this published?
I'll get to it. Okay. 46 billion people with a B. So take 46 billion and divide it by 500 million, and you can see there's a way bigger difference out there.
Wait, hold on. And this is a Palantir press release?
Don't worry. I'm going to get it all together.
Okay. Keep going.
Trust me, it's good. So the contract has a high ceiling of up to 46 billion and a 10-year period of performance. It is designed to be broad in scope, flexible in funding, and agile for maximum use. Through EWAC, the entire weapons portfolio now has an access to a multifaceted contract instrument to award and subsequently deliver capabilities faster than ever, Collins said. The blah, 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 blah. This is a great part. I have to read this. The Armament Directorate motto is go fast, think big. Ballsy. Love it. So this came out in 2021. So EWAC is about a weapons program. Okay. This might get a little confusing. So EWAC had multiple parts to it, and there will be multiple vendors. So Palantir will not be getting 46 billion exclusively. I wish. Maybe they will. I doubt it, but I highly doubt it. But 46 billion, and there is a potential number of vendors that we might know what it might be split up to. So we're going to use that figure. So that was in 2021. In 2022, from the Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, and it's the same center where that press release was, I believe, the Eglin Air Force Base. So they're all connected. It's all from the Air Force. This comes almost a year later. The first thing comes out about the 46 billion in October of 2021. And now we're going to go to August 5th, 2022. Digital transformation requires change in thinking. And the main thing about it, as I'm not going to spend a lot of time anything really reading this, is digital trinity. So what is digital trinity? When you think about those imperatives, the backbone behind them is our ability to deliver capability faster. What digital does for us, it doesn't eliminate steps, but allows us to increase flexibility and reduce risk. And this is Frank Kendall's 7 operational imperatives, Morris said, of the digital journey. Now, the digital trinity model, that's what we're focusing on, is digital trinity. The digital trinity model is a model-based system of engineering, agile systems development, and modular open systems architecture, represents a powerful way to move and respond to threats fast gives you is the flexibility that you don't have to change an entire weapon system when a threat changes. I can change subsystems. I can change apertures. I can change wavelengths inside my system in a much more responsive manner than what I do today. I can address threats quickly. In terms of program management, digital transformation also helps drive down risks because it allows you to gain collective insights into programs much earlier. Okay, so Digital Trinity is a model-based systems of engineering and agile systems development in a modular open systems architecture that represents a powerful way to move and respond to threats. So it's software, and it's all about their ability to change out a weapon system as quickly as possible for a specific mission or anything that's going on. And the reason why it's going under the Air Force is because what Palantir and Maven does, and this is something I should have read first. The Maven Smart system uses the Maven Smart system uses AI-generated algorithms and memory learning capabilities to scan and identify enemy systems in the areas of responsibility. Maven fuses data from various intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance systems to identify areas of interest. Maven is not replacing the intelligence analyst job, but simply speeding up the processes while enhancing workflow and efficiencies. So that's Maven in the most general sense. So, and if you remember from the Q2 earnings, this is really my only way to really just get it out at this point, is when Sham talks about being in every vehicle, every ship, every cockpit, that's basically software. And he did mention Target Workbench, but that's also Maven to a degree. So those MQ-9 Reapers that I do talk about, they're having Maven, a software system, on board. And what they're doing is they're connected to all these different systems about this data. And this is one of the other, and this is what I don't understand about the Palantir press release about this project, is they let Shannon Clark obviously talk to the media, but they also let this gentleman, what's his name? Andrew Locke, talk to the media as well. And there's two whole articles, and I will post them afterwards. And the main thing is, and they do mention it in the Palantir press release, but it's really not mentioned in many others, but the guide. I mean, the guides are huge. Global Information Domination Experiment. So they're starting to get money for that because Bobcat Gang and myself has been starting to get a little mad because they're about to do, they're like 10th or 11th or 12th exercise for guide. And it's just like, what fucking more do they need to do? Like, it's working, like, and they actually said it's not fast enough, which I guess I can understand. It's never going to be fast enough. Let's be real. Like, unless you're physically there at the battlefield with, so I understand it's always got to be faster. So, and I'm not there, so I don't understand. I'm sure there are things that aren't working out as smoothly as they want, so I should take some of that back. But what they're doing is, and this is what Locke said, and Clark actually said this, and this is the whole point with that $33 million and this whole MOSA and mission manager that they talk about, and Palantir being the software systems, the prime software systems integrator, because they were telling you straight in the face, we are not going to think of everything. However, and this is Clark speaking, we will be partnering with them to help integrate other AI capabilities, not just what Palantir brings to the table, so they will be able to build on all the data integrations that Palantir is doing, build on the pipelines and applications within the platform or other platforms through open APIs and our ontology software development kits. We want to be able to integrate with any data system, any new AI capability that the government procures and wants to be part of this ecosystem. So, should tomorrow a new sensor come online, should a new AI capability come online, we want to be able to integrate with that. They're getting so embedded in this that the prototype, because that's what it is, they're building on it. What do you think is going to happen in 5 years? You think they're just going to scrap it and build something from new? No, they're going to give them a larger deal, just like what's going to happen in Titan 2 years. Titan will be a over $1 billion contract, depending on how many Titans the government wants to buy. But as it relates to this Maven and now this EWAC contract, they know they are not going to be the ones who think of everything. And that honestly is probably their smartest attribute, that they're willing to say, I am not the smartest person in the room. And that's a very admirable quality, because most people are not the smartest person in the room. I'm certainly not. But when they let Andrew Locke talks about is...
Okay, so Adam, I think we're kind of getting lost here. We got to bring it together. So the first thing was this 46 billion contract.
Right.
What does that have to do with anything, and how does this relate back to Palantir?
Okay. So I know I just went on a tangent right there. So the digital trinity is models of AI and systems. So the point is that's going to be integrated onto Palantir's software somewhere in some way, shape, and form. And it's already been done. And the reason that we know that is because Palantir was awarded for EWAC Ramp 2. So there was 2 parts. There's Ramp 1, which had nothing to do with Palantir, so we're not going to worry about that at the moment. But then there's Ramp 2.
When were they awarded Ramp 2?
So Ramp 2, it is a very small award, but that is not the main thing. It is because this is going to be a long time till they award this. So this was awarded to Palantir. I have to fucking pull it up.
And also, what does EWAC stand for? What's the actual acronym, if you know?
It is the
electronic something.
No, the Eglin-wide Agile Acquisition Contract.
Okay.
So I'm calling it EWAC. So okay, here we go. So on February 7th, 2024, Palantir received from the Department of Air Force $1,000. I know.
Money. It's a lot of money, dude. $1,000 is a lot.
I know. I'm talking about $46 billion to $1,000. I know. Drastic change. Huge gap in money. I know. But they received $46 billion. Excuse me. They received $1,000 for this. And the main thing is they are one of the vendors. That is all that matters, is that they are one of the vendors and they are part of this thing. The last part that came out of this was in April 9th, is they are adding another vendor to this potential thing. The first ramp was 55 vendors. So if the second ramp is only 55 vendors, if it's only 110 companies, and depending on what everyone's doing, $46 billion is a lot of money to be spread around. So, and depending on what everyone's purpose is going to be and what the use is going to be, it's going to be a massive, massive chunk of change, I believe, for Palantir. Because if Palantir is going to be, the main operating system of the United States of America in all form, they are going to have to be the main foundation for where all of this comes from. And
EWAC is the 46 billion, correct?
Yes, it's very, very confusing. It's very, very hard to honestly get out, because it spans over 3 years, obviously.
Yeah.
And they didn't get this $1,000 till February 7th, but the ramp 2 didn't start going till, I believe, 2022. But it took a whole year for suppliers to answer their proposal. And they said they received, hundreds of them. So I'm sure they definitely accepted hundreds and 50 others to proceed. If ramp 1 was 55 vendors, I'm going to assume ramp 2 at the bare minimum is going to be 55 vendors. So just do 46 billion divided by 55. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
So
so I think this comment simplifies it. And I know it's complicated, but 46 billion on the line over the next decade, 55 companies on the contracting list, or 150, whatever it may be. Palantir got $1,000 to kind of get their foot in the door. Like that thousand was just like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like they got $1 from the NHS or a pound from the NHS a while ago.
correct, you're on the list.
Right, you're on the list. And now this 46 billion has to be spent over the next decade, is what you're saying.
Well, I don't know the exact specifics on how it's truly going to work out. Of course, you know, the $1,000 was signed on February 7th, and they completed the work on March 8th. And then on April 9th, there was a press release that came out that says U.S. Air Force's 46 billion EWAC selects Persistent Systems to join multi-vendor, EWAC, 46 billion. But here's the key thing. A lot of the language is very, very similar to the Maven in terms of indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. So it's important to see also where these contracts are similar that Palantir gets. Because if they're building the system for all these acquisitions, and that's the whole point, and Shyam's been very vocal about building the infrastructure. This is the infrastructure. The whole point is for these people to take their digital Trinity models, test it within Gotham real quickly, figure out which weapon system they're supposed to use, and then deploy it. That's it. That's the game. That's the whole point. And then the whole thing, it all starts and ends with space. So they're going to be deployed to Spacecom and Stratcom. So Maven's going to be collecting all this information. Okay. So just to put it in perspective, there's a drone up top. You can kind of see it behind me. There's a drone up top. He's collecting information about what's going on in, I don't know, Syria. All that information is being fed into the Maven smart system. The operator is looking at that data and leveraging what to do. Okay. He then figures out the best thing to do is to, deploy a Hellfire, Razor missile, whatever it might be. But that might require a different drone, or it might require, an aircraft, whatever it might be.
Right.
The point is that has to be connected because the drone is using Maven, and now this new aircraft that's going to deploy this weapon system that was chosen by this AI, this agile architecture. That's the whole point, is they need to be able to see, all right, this is what's going on. This is what I have, what weapon to deploy, what's the chances, what's the most thing. And they have to do that on the fly. So Palantir, if they are truly the operating system and the infrastructure, which they are, and I'm going to send you this screenshot so everybody can see this and they think I'm not going crazy. I know a 46 billion to $1,000 is obviously a huge decrease, but I just sent it to you, and you'll see it clearly states Palantir United States Government EWAC on ramp 2. So
yeah, it's just getting your foot in the door. It makes sense.
And their foot is already way in the door for this kind of stuff. And the ironic part is the descriptions. It's small arms. So they're not even calling it software. They're calling it weaponry. And Picard himself has called, the software nuclear weapons. And this is the point. The whole point is they're able to look at what's going on and change these weapons. It's going to be, obviously we have no idea what they're going to, get out of this. They're going to either get, hopefully more than $1,000. That's the baseline. But if it's going to be, what is it, 110, if it's truly 110 vendors and it's 46 billion between them and it's over 10 years, like they are going to get a fat stack of this. And the main thing that we're starting to see is the money starting to flow now. And the reason why example of the hose is because that money spent, they already said, because of what fucking happened this year of getting the fiscal year 25 budget set, that they kind of just, kept everything this kind of stuff the same, unfortunately. So next year it might be similar dollars, but 2026 it's going to be way up. But the point is, the faucet's on, and you're starting to see it right now.
Yeah, I think and we saw this with the government reacceleration last quarter, right? Went from 11% to 16, which is not bad. That number inches back up to 20. You got commercial now, US commercial going 45%, I think 27% top line, and government growing it closer to 20%. Maybe actual top line revenue gets closer to 25 from 21, which would be on par with the snowflakes of and the data dogs of the world. And then you got this whole I mean, what's your take on this? And we'll end it after this. The all the software names got crushed today because Salesforce took a beating. Palantir was the only green name, and I think it's because the street's like, well, if they got a $500 million contract in one day, maybe they're
Well,
not the same as Snowflake.
look, as I've said, the stock's obviously important to me. Duh. The company is not the stock, and the stock is not the company. So with that said, Palantir can do what Salesforce can do. Salesforce cannot do what Palantir can do. That's ultimately what needs to be said. And look, I'll be the first one to admit I have not looked at Salesforce earnings, so I can't really say. All I see is the headline was weak guidance. So I mean, I don't really know if that's the case or not. I think with Palantir and what a lot of people, at least retail, understand, and what a lot of new retail is understanding, and some Wall Street, is that they are an alpha growth company. And yes, the growth was definitely slow when they first, DPO'd, but the boot camp has kicked into overdrive, and the lumpiness that Karp spoke about years ago, they're just in a good flow right now of the government money. And in 5-10 years, the same thing can happen where it can be a little bit lumpy. Now, granted, in 5-10 years, hopefully they've had contracts and they'll have everything where they're getting billions. So that's not going to be a big deal, hopefully, to people. It won't be to me. That's the way how it works. Just to throw Titan in there, if they do order 200 Titans, that's $2 billion. So, they get $2 billion from Titan. If they get a couple billion from this, EWAC thing, we're talking major, major stacks. So, it's impossible to tell what the payment structure is going to look like next year, never mind 10 years down the line. But they are in line for a $46 billion opportunity. And that is something that none of us should take for granted. And the fact that they are heavily in the running is a major, major deal.
And Titan beating Raytheon, that was a big deal in and of itself. And that kind of showed if we didn't beat Raytheon on that, maybe this would be a little bit more conjecture. But the fact that we actually beat them, it goes to show maybe we're going to beat a lot more of the primes over the next decade as well.
So I think I should end on this just because you said it, and I kind of have to now go off of it. If no one read my Operations Center post, and we did cover up the pilot. So the Palantir got awarded a 3-month pilot a few weeks ago for the Operations Center. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Operations Center, is that was created in the midst of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Basically, Kennedy needed to know what was going on, and he didn't know who to call. So they created this Operations Center, and the Operations Center basically covers the entire world 24/7, 365. There's an event going on, they know about it. Palantir was awarded a 3-month pilot for the Operations Center, and the 3-month pilot is only $918,000. So obviously it's not $20 million 1-month Maven license. Good to know it's $20 million, but great to know. But the Operations Center is the heartbeat of the United States. It is a huge, huge deal. So when they get that done, and that was signed April 24th, and that work is supposed to be complete in July 21. So that should be done in about 6-7 weeks. And if we see a big contract for the Operations Center, don't be surprised, but that could be a massive, massive thing. But to go off of your thing regarding competition, I want to read one thing related to the Operations Center, because Maven was sole contract, And the reason why is no one can do what they did. And maybe Google could have done it if they kept on it and built it to what it was. But in the operation center, when they in the release and in the release for the contract, they don't give out the dollar amount. It's actually whited out. We had to piece together the dates and numbers and stuff, but it says it says they name Microsoft right here. They're since November 2022, Operation Center engaged, blah 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 blah. The Orion, which is a ops response interagency online network. The platform leverages existing enterprise software, including Office 365, custom JavaScript. These in-house followed previous platforms acquisitions with a private provider known as Hooveray. Their WebOC product was not able to meet the SOW presented, and as a result, the contract was prematurely terminated. The operation has examined additional proposals met the needs described by Improvox, Microsoft, and Palantir. So Microsoft, Palantir, and this company Improvox both were able to get into it. Then it turns out Palantir is the only company that can provide access and support to the proprietary SaaS known as Foundry. The Operation Center has solicited proposals from other private contractors, including Improvox and corporations like Microsoft, and have determined that no other entities could meet the requirements outlined in the blah, 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 blah. So if they're getting a $500 million Maven contract and they're the sole contractor and they're getting a 3-month pilot and they execute, which I see no reason why they wouldn't, what's not to say they get a $500 million Operation Center contract? And that's under the State Department, if I'm not mistaken. So that, it's, I don't know, I don't believe that's the Department of Defense. So it's just going to show you it is overlapping.
It's a lot of stuff. A lot of people in the chat are this is what you do all day. This is what you go through. You go through all this shit, and at 11 p.m. at night, you're able to somehow regurgitate it. I
also deal with a lot of bullshit, and I bullshit my way by not dealing with their bullshit by looking at this bullshit. Yeah. So.
All right, this was good. I'm happy we got this out because I'm not even gonna be in Jersey the next week, so we had to do it today, guys. That's why it was an emergency episode. If you got to listen to it again, listen to it again. There's a lot of stuff Adam's piecing together to get to these conclusions. But the conclusion is that there's money to be made, there's money to be distributed, and Palantir is one of the handful of companies that's in the running to get that money. And that's just the government side. That's not even thinking about, hey, if they can really accelerate the commercial business, where does this go?
And the key thing is there is no competition, quote, CARP, and now, quote, government. Like, it's out there. It's not even Palantir saying it. It's the government.
One bid was received. One bid was solicited. One contract was given to Palantir.
And Operation Center will probably be the same thing. And EWAC, we will see in time.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great night. The fact that 422 people came at 11 p.m. to talk Palantir just shows the depth of this community. Really appreciate you guys. Adam's Twitter is in the description. I'm going to put it in the chat again. Please make sure to follow him if you're not following him yet. And we'll keep going from there. And that's it.
Yeah. Till next time.
Okay, so give me 1 sec. Your computer was spazzing out. Now I have so many tabs open. My computer is spazzing out. So it's going to need 1 second.
Dude, I have so many tabs open. It's crazy.
There we go. All right, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.